bond market has been relatively quiet this week. Despite the bond primary market auction that was at 225 billion naira earlier this week, Chuka Nwachukwu, the head of bonds trading at UBA, joins me now for a midweek update on Nigeria's fixed income markets. Thank you so much, Chuka, for your time. Before we get to bonds, let's start with the Tbill market and your outlook for that. Do you think that, given the outlook for inflation, I just want to ask you that question right off the bat, that we would see double digits Tbill rates? Because it does appear to me as though that is where we should be going, given the new monetary stance of the central bank, and then, of course, the stubbornly ascendant inflation rate, rather.
Okay, thank you, Wale. For T-bills, in terms of movement in yield, I don't think that we will see that double digit you talked about, not immediately. If you notice the auction pattern, you notice that the rate, especially on the NTB auction, has been coming down. It came down from 6.69 levels to 6.44, and then the last one came out at 6.07. So the expectation of everyone, due to the inflation figures and all that, is that yield will go up. But I mean, so far we haven't seen that movement,
But the question is why? Is that a reflection of liquidity, or is this more the stance of the authorities to keep those Tbill rates low?
Well, two things. One, liquidity. People, like for today, for example, this week, system has been tight, and then I see people selling the shorter end of the curve, to provide liquidity. So with that, you really don't see rates move upward. And then secondly, I mean, if you watch the pattern of DMO, in as much as people are looking forward to seeing the higher yield, but I mean, one of the primary objectives of DMO is to borrow as cheap as possible, and so far they've maintained that stand.
All right, so let's talk about the bond market now. So I did mention that the bond auction offer. What are we reading from that offer?
Okay, like I said earlier, T-bills auction was last week Wednesday, and the rate dropped. And so a lot of people felt that bond auction, I mean, we followed that pattern, but it hasn't followed that pattern. Rather, it's been the other way, it's been the opposite. Like you mentioned, we had 3 maturities on offer, the 2025, and 2032, and then 2042. We saw a movement in yield between 5 basis points to 15 basis points. For example, the shorter end came out at move upward by 10 basis points from 10% to 10.1. 32 moves slightly, about 5 basis points from move up to from 12.45 to 12.5, and then the longer end move from 13% to 13.15. This is the projection and the trajectory we expect the movement of yield to go, but then it's not moving as fast as people expect it, and I personally don't think that we see that high yield around 14%, 14.5 at the immediate future.
All right. I know we don't talk much about them recently, but are we seeing any interest from foreign investors at all at this time?
Not immediately, especially with the election approaching. Naturally, foreign investors tend to leave a particular economy when, especially as regard the third world, a growing economy like Nigeria and then some Africa and the rest of Africa. So we don't see them coming yet. Maybe after the election, we will see them trickling in, but within the next few months, we really don't see much of that coming in.
Of course, we know one issue that has concerned investors beyond the elections has been the outlook for the currency and the exchange rate. What is your outlook for the naira given the intervention of the central bank recently?
Yeah, the outlook for naira, is mixed. One hand, you see naira appreciate, and then the other hand, you see it depreciate. But then, you look at the activities of the central bank. We should also give them kudos because they are trying the best they can to ensure that the movement, the depreciation is not as bad as one, people will expect. And so you see that over time they continue to intervene, and then of course, the demand is huge, and so the more they intervene, the more demand comes up, and that's why you see, movements, between maybe depreciation between 5 kobo to 1 naira, sometimes to 2 kobo to 3 kobo. So by and large, I think they're doing the best they can, and there's really nothing they can do in terms of demand.